On page 139, it talks about group health insurance. Many businesses offer group health insurance plans to their employees. Group insurance costs less to purchase than individual insurance. Businesses often pay part of the insurance cost or premium, and the employee pays the remaining amount. For example, right now our school is going through, or for the district, is going through new plans for everybody. Okay? Me personally, I don't partake because I get my insurance through my wife's job. But the people that do, they're going to a different plan. Alright? When you have a bigger group like this, like Minot Public is a pretty big group. It's one of the biggest ones in Minot. That group alone will be a reduced rate than if Brandon were to go buy it on his own. Okay, because on your own you have no group. They share it between, or share the savings across the board rather than one person individually. And you don't get any savings. Okay? As far as the formulas go, the employee share is going to be equal to the annual amount multiplied by the employee's percent. Okay. So that's the first thing that's going to happen. So here's what they're going to say. They're going to say things like, your employer pays 70% of your health insurance. How much would you pay? 30. Because 100 minus 70 would be 30. That's okay. Then from there, we take whatever the cost was and times it by that percent that's left over, and that's how much we pay. Okay? That's the first formula. Now, that number that we get there does not come out in one paycheck. It comes out over the course of the entire year. Now, a lot of times, and I know ours is changing for the school district, not that I use it, but I know ours is starting over at the first of the year. Most of the time, medical insurance, for whatever reason, starts in October. I don't get it, why they start there. A lot of times it's October 1 to September 30th is usually the years for insurance. Some cases, they use June 30th, and then July 1st is the new one because that's a fiscal year. And that's what they call it in banking terms and whatnot. But for this new one that the school is going to, they're starting fresh at January 1. Okay? So in order to do the rest of it, to find your deduction per paycheck, okay, you're going to take the employee share, or the total, and you're going to divide it by number of paychecks. Okay. Now, of course, they say number of pay periods in a year, but paychecks is the same thing for us. So, for those of you who work, if you get paid every 2 weeks, how many paychecks is that a year? 26. If you get paid twice a month, how many paychecks is that? 24. A little bit of difference there. If you get paid weekly, like when I used to work at Sears for the first time, and I worked there when I lived in Grand Forks, we got paid by the week. So every week we got a paycheck on Friday. And then after, like my last year there, they started going to every 2 weeks across the nation. So they changed it then. But that's your two formulas for today. So at the bottom of page 139, it says the annual cost of insurance is $6,570. The employer pays 70%. And you have 12 pay periods. So for instance, this person is getting paid once a month. Okay? So they're getting one monthly check. Just so that you guys know, when you become, if you ever become a salaried employee, like I am right now, you have the option, sometimes they give you the option of how many paychecks you want. I elect to go with mine twice a month, so I get 2 paychecks a month. Sometimes you could get it once a month. Bad thing about once a month is that you have to really be really good at budgeting your money. Because if you spend it all right away, you don't have any money for the rest of the month. Right? So you got to be careful. Okay, so if the employer is paying 70% of your costs, and the cost for the whole thing is $65.70, that's probably a single plan. How much do you pay? You pay 30%. So if the employer is paying 70%, you pay 30%. Okay? And again, how we got that is 100% needs to be paid of it. The employer's paying 70% of it. You have to pay 30% of it. 30 and 70 make 100. So what is 6570 times 0.3? 1971. So out of the 6570 for the year for your health insurance plan, you are responsible for $1,971 of it. But again, it's not coming out of one paycheck, it's being spread out between how many? 12. So now I take that number and I divide it by 12, because you have 12 paychecks. So what's 1971 divided by 12? 164.25 is what Francis had, and so did Matt. I was looking over his shoulder. Okay, so on the directions, just so that you guys know, it says find the deduction per pay period. That's the 164.25. So when you get a paycheck, for instance, let's say that you made in that month, or in the month, you made $2,000. $164.25 are coming out to pay for your health insurance. Now, maybe you don't get sick. That kind of stinks that you have to pay in there, but the alternative is paying for everything out of pocket. And that's not cool, because some of those things cost a lot of money. Number 2. Huh? No, they usually have things like, a lot of times what they do is that you have a copay when you go to the doctor. Like when you went to go get your sports physical this year. Is your family military? So you probably didn't have this. But if you're not military, a lot of times what they have is that they have a copay. So they had to pay, like our copay right now is $25. So anytime one of our kids or we go to the doctor, we have to pay $25. And then that goes towards part of that bill. And then what they do is that they, based on the rates and whatnot, so like my shot that I get would normally be this much money, because they had to have an x-ray tech in that room, plus the doctor, plus a nurse, plus all the instruments and whatnot. All that comes, that's a bill that goes towards you. And then what happens is with your insurance, depending on how much they cover, they reduce that amount, and then whatever is left over, you have to pay for that. And then sometimes when you hit a certain level, then the rest of it's covered because you've already exceeded a certain number. All right, number 2. It says the annual cost of insurance is $12,000. Your employer is paying 80% of it, and you have 52 paychecks. So if your employer is going to pay 80%, how much are you responsible for? 20%. So the first thing I need to do is take the 12,000 times 20%, or 0.2.
Would it be 0.02?
Nope. 20%, so move it over 2 spaces.
That was a dumb question.
0.02 would be 2%.
Okay.
So how much money is that? $2,400. Now, realistically, just so that you guys know, a $12,000 plan, pretty close to a family. I think families nowadays, though, in our state, they're around 15, 16,000. But they go up every year. So even though this book's new, that might have been a family last year.
I got 60,000 for some reason. I put my decimal.
You're dividing?
I'm sure.
Not timesing. Okay. So $2,400 has got to be spread out between every paycheck. So in order to figure that out now, I divide it by 52. And what's 2,400 divided by 52? 52.
Yeah, I still have no one, so.
$46.15 is what Matt got. Okay. Again, we're rounding to the nearest penny because I know it was 1.5 blah blah blah. Okay. Then on the next page, it says Lars Olson authorized a deduction of $163.75 from his monthly pay for his group health insurance. His employer pays 45% of the cost. What's the annual premium amount for his group health insurance? What this means, you guys, is we need to work backwards to figure out how much money is it for the year. Where I'm giving you the like on this problem, I'm giving you the $46.15. I'm giving you how much the person pays and how many paychecks. What we don't know is what was the original starting number. So we got to work backwards. So first and foremost, let's write down what we know. We know that $163.75 are coming out of his monthly paychecks. And his employer pays 45% of the health costs. Maybe it's a small business that can't afford to pay more, right? Okay. So how much are you responsible for? If your employer is paying 45%, how much are you responsible for? 55. How'd you get 55 again? Bless you. 100 minus 45. Right. So then, for this particular thing, here's what's happening. You're paying 55% of something. What letter do you want to use? C? Divided by, how many paychecks do we have? 12. Should equal $163.75. Now, that thing that I just wrote up on the board is exactly what we were doing. The only difference was we knew what the letter C was. Now we don't. So now we're going to work backwards. So for that first, on that last ones where we took and we times it by the percent and then we divided it by the paycheck, go in reverse order. So instead of dividing by the paycheck, you're going to multiply by the paycheck first. So you're going to times both sides by 12. What's $163.75 times 12? $19.65. For where, Brian? We're not done yet. And then how would I get rid of a times by? Divide. Again, you're actually dividing by. So to figure out how much it costs, what's 1965 divided by 0.55? .73? Ugh, I never give myself enough room. Matt, you should be reminding me of that. Okay? Yeah. Oops, and then I didn't even write it down right. Matt. Tell me to stop doing that.
Stop doing that.
Okay. I still can't do this. That's a 3 in the back. 7-3. don't even know what that looks like. But it's supposed to be a 3. 7-3. That's number 3. Yep. This one right here. Okay, number 4. Rhonda Martin has $215.25 deducted from her semi-monthly pay for group health insurance. So let's write down what they're giving us. They're giving us $215.25 comes out of semi-monthly. What's semi-monthly? How many is that? How many times? 24. 24, when it's semi-monthly, that means you're getting 2 paychecks a month.
Did you ask how many times a month?
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I meant how many in a year. Rocky Mountain Auto Parts, her employer, pays 60% of the cost. What's the annual premium for Rhonda's group health insurance? So if the Rocky Mountain Auto Parts is paying 60%, how much does Rhonda pay?
40%.
Yay! 40%. Okay, those two should balance out to be 100%. Now, we're going to set this up the exact same way that we did the last one. What's 40% as a decimal? 0.4. Times, and we'll use the same letter C that we just had, because we don't know what the cost of it was. Divided by how many paychecks did Rhonda have? 24. Equaled $215.25. So when you know how much is coming out of the paycheck, in order to work backwards, this is how you would have to set it up. So, what's the first thing I need to get rid of? I need to what, Francis? What about it? Awesome. I need to multiply both sides by 24. That leaves me with 0.4 times C equals, what's $215.25 times 24? Matt says 51.66, and I know he's right because I'm looking over his shoulder and see what he typed. Now, how do I get rid of the 0.4? Divide, right. And I actually have enough room this time. I heeded Matt's warning. So 51.66 divided by 0.4 is $12,915. That was the cost of Rhonda's insurance for the year. Okay? So you'll have one of two things. It'll either say how much is being deducted for the paycheck, which is like the first two we did, or it'll say how much is it for the year, which is like the last two that we just did. You need to be careful about when you read it what you're actually finding. Because if you do it the opposite way, you're going to get the wrong thing. So when it talks about number 5, for instance, it says how much of the cost does Marge pay monthly, that's like the first two. Or when it says how much is coming out of each paycheck, that's like the first two. If it says how much is the annual premium, that's like this one. So be careful when you read it. Make sure that you're going through and getting the right, or finding the right stuff. So starting on 139 and going to 141, 1 through 10. And I just did 1 through 4 with you. So I'm starting to give you a free one.